We're off to find the Urn of Sacred Ashes, and we believe it's up north in the Frostback Mountains.
You have been waylaid by enemies.
Oh, thank the Maker. We need help. They attacked the wagon. Please help us. Follow me. I'll take you to them.
Right. It's a trap. So we meet and defeat Zevran, who's part of some infamous assassins group, which we easily defeat, which sort of legitimizes you as being a strong warrior. Now, Zevran wants to join us because not only has he failed the crows, it means the crows are out to kill him. And because we're so powerful, he would feel safer with us. He's a rather charming, positive guy despite being an assassin. That makes sense, as he wasn't expecting to live if he failed in his task. In our case, the crows will still want to come after our head, and having one to watch our back makes some degree of logic. This could, however, be one giant ruse for him to kill us in our sleep. The crows can be relentless and very devious, and Zevran convincingly sells himself to us. We make our way to the Frostback Mountain Pass and come across a dwarven trading post of sorts, which is directly outside the entrance to Orzammar, the dwarven underground kingdom, which I'm assuming we have to get through to get closer to the Urn of Sacred Ashes. Entrance to the kingdom is blocked, as the government of the dwarves has not yet selected a successor to the throne. Luckily, we have our Grey Warden treaties, so the doorman lets us in. The messenger from King Loghain, as he calls him at least, isn't too happy about that, so we kill him. This directly aligns with our plot to get help to fight the Darkspawn and to gain passage to continue our quest to find the urn. Inside, we discover the most fleshed out part of the game. Dwarves are an antiquated yet practical people relying on a caste system, a variety of military organizations, businesses, politics, an ancient library, and a diversity of religions. Along with the color palette and archaic designs, their city reminds me of what a society of similar, mild-mannered Klingons who might live underground could be like. It's a highly believable world as a 2,000-year-old society of short people to the extreme level of visual and social detail. We discover that there's a stereotypical fantasy genre staple here at work. They're really good at blacksmithing, masonry, sculpture, brewing strong ales, and plumbing that can withstand lava. What Dragon Age Origins does a bit different with these common tropes is add to the culture and complexity of their society. Their philosophy is based on ancient heroes called paragons, their living ancestors, that the dwarven people strive to be. To simplify their knack for business and split between nobles, common folk can choose or be forced to work with some ancient crime syndicates called the Carta, which is split between the upper and lower region of the city. Regardless, because they are directly in conflict with the Darkspawn, fighting to them means fighting the Darkspawn. Along with the Colosseum, fighting is a way of life.
It's fascinating the surface has an entire order dedicated to fighting Darkspawn. Down here, that's just what fighting means. But I'm sure it's more difficult on the surface. It must be much harder to find them.
As such, a Blight may not have the same level of motivation as it would on the surface. Nonetheless, they have an entire branch of the military called the Legion of the Dead, who actively and defensively fight them into reclaiming their lost ancestral territory, most of which has been part of a completely forgotten series of blocked network tunnels called the Deep Roads. This makes our enemy a real thing, a complex thing, a real believable conflict that dwarves, who are very diverse and fully aware of, even if a blight to them is just another surfacer problem. This is a great setup for us being Grey Wardens and for the level design to incorporate literal forgotten magical dungeons where we can learn more about our enemy and explore larger, very large levels, in fact. This is also about the time we've grown accustomed to managing our inventory, or our maximum inventory capacity, and aren't too scared of scrapping items and equipment we don't want anymore, as we're now into building our class a certain way. I could spend a few videos going on about the lore, the world building, the Silent Sisters, founded by the first Paragon, or female Paragon, Astith the Grey, the large amounts of family crests and symbols, the little nug creatures, the conflict between the rich and the poor, then there's the Carta, the bickering between those who used to be part of, or are part of, or who want to be part of a noble house. There's the complex and large architecture. But that's all for you to play the game and see for yourself. The plot here is primarily about politics and making actions and improving one political candidate over another. As we enter the main hall of the Underground Kingdom, which is lit by massive lava lakes flowing out of pipes and gigantic bridges connecting on platforms, we see a conflict between Zaid and Rufus, who is to be the next successor. Though it seems somewhat coincidental that this occurs, this is a great way of showing us what the main issue of this scenario is. It's less about the two representatives of the conservative or liberal political spectrums, and more about a practical power grab over who said what at someone's previous sovereign's deathbed, all of which ends in someone getting killed. Immediately after, the game acknowledges our existence, and we get the common man response and a quick explanation of what we need to do.
I won't have fighting in the commons, especially in front of outsiders.
Bunch of Desher lords bickering over sand. Balin, Harrowmont. Is one so different? No paragons here. Surfacers appoint no paragons? Truly, you're lost in all that sky. They are the best of us, declared living ancestors. If you must be our warden, at least know us. Go to the Shaper of Memories in the Shaperate, the true bright spot in the Diamond Quarter.
Once again, it's odd that everyone suddenly knows that we're wardens as soon as we enter a level, but that's generally how the game has been so far. Everything is clearly laid out for us. We get a quick and informative understanding of the culture of the dwarves, a practical clear goal for our next steps, and the opportunity to explore this massive, massive level. This is great storytelling and game design. We speak to a top advisor to Prince Rufus, who tells us the treaty is only good to an Orzammar king, which means we have to help appoint a king before we get the dwarves on our side. Thus, we can choose to side with either one, as each tries to gain favor of votes from the nobility. Each uses assassins and spies, and you can influence others through side quests, which involve showing the nobles evidence of the other's wrongdoings. There's a Colosseum combat scenes, and stopping the Carta leader. This ultimately comes down to the influence of a living paragon called Branka, and we go into the deep roads with her husband Oghren to find her. What follows is a long trek through darkspawn-infested rock passageways, complete with a variety of beasts, all for the goal of finding an ancient anvil that Paragon Caridin created, said to create golems that Branka is actually looking for. Eventually we encountered a deranged dwarf named Ruck, who apparently has been eating darkspawn in order to survive, which effectively makes him a ghoul or tainted organism who's still reasonably sane. Kind of like us. After that conversation, we get attacked by giant spiders, and then Ruck can detect that we have some of the darkness within us of course being Grey Wardens. He tells us about the awakening of the Archdemon and how all the Darkspawn are entranced by the message it sends to them. This is good exposition, as it humanizes what little understanding we have of our mindless freak show of an enemy, as much humanity as we can expect. They're nothing more than feral beasts within a variety of humanoid forms. They're also mostly gone south, which, luckily for us, is the opposite direction we're going. After we eventually defeat golems, dwarven spirits, and a whole bunch more spiders, we find a journal from Branka, who went to the dead trenches where the Darkspawn nest. As we travel there, we get a cutscene which is reminiscent of our original vision. We see the Darkspawn army beneath us as we're up high, and the Archdemon dragon flying throughout. Everyone is strangely quiet after this ordeal. We then encounter the Legion of the Dead fighting Darkspawn, and we help them out.
The other kingdoms only care when the Darkspawn march in the light. But they are always here, always pushing. Your nightmare is my everyday. Our resolve gives you a rest between blights. A surge on the surface would give us a break. When the time comes, I'll care for a good dwarven reason. Sod the rest.
This is the exact kind of guy we want on Team Grey Warden. He tells us he has no orders, since there is no king, he needs a leader, so he can't really advance. He believes Branka to be dead, but won't stop us from doing what we want. As we make our way through this abandoned dwarven city, we suddenly have an intermittent narrator, although there is the possibility that she's a rogue that's stealthy and talking to us as we progress, as we've seen some dwarven rogues go stealth in combat and other events. Then again, this is a fantasy story, so we're sort of led to believe this is a magical form of throwing one's voice. Who knows?
First day they come and catch everyone. Second day, they beat us and eat some from meat. Fifth day they return and it's another girl's turn. Sixth day, her screams we hear in our dreams. Seventh day, she blew as in her mouth they spew. Eighth day, we hate it as she is violated. Ninth day, she grins and devours her kin. Now she does feast, as she, first day they come.
So this poem is recited by a lady named Hespeth, who was Branka's captain, who watched something happen to someone named Laren, so she would be spared from her fate. But she was forced to watch and cannibalize her associates. So she's a bit nuts here, and then she runs off before we can understand what she's actually talking about. This makes Hespeth yet another ghoul. but also reconfirms that the Darkspawn are this nasty, disgusting series of creatures by kicking it up a notch, and by using a defense mechanism similar to a lullaby or repetitive behavior as one's slow descent into madness and unacceptance of one's mental state is happening. Poetry and psychology become a simple and elegant way of storytelling, and could freak you out when you first hear it. Branka is also apparently some kind of monster, but we're not sure in what capacity yet. Oghren apparently has nothing to say here. Anyway, her magical monologue keeps going on as it did before.
She became obsessed. That is the word, but it is not strong enough. Blessed stone was nothing left in her. We tried to escape, but they found us. They took us all. Turned us. The men they kill. They're merciful. But the women, they want to touch, to hold. They took Laren. They made her eat the others, our friends. She tore off her husband's face and drank his blood. And while she ate, she grew. She swelled and turned gray, and she smelled like them. They remade her in their image. Then she made more of them. Brood Mother. That's where they come from. That's why they hate us. That's why they need us. That's why they take us. That's why they feed us. But the true abomination is not that it occurred, but that it was allowed. Branka, my love. The stone has punished me, dream friend. I am dying of something worse than death. Betrayal.
While I don't really like narrators coming out of nowhere for the sake of it, we've at least discovered that we know how the Darkspawn procreate, at least the versions of Darkspawn here for dwarves. This can thus be deduced to see that they take other females from other species and turn them into broodmothers there. This is an excellent development, because the level of detail is no longer the magical evil fade creature that creates an army, but instead is based on basic life cycle processes and how they go about choosing or finding a female of a certain species to then start setting up a broodmother. In the most disgusting way imaginable, I presume, which should give players the motivational interest to defeat the big bad guy. This is a great form of storytelling, this is a great form of gameplay, and perhaps one of the most sophisticated forms of both in the game.